The Haunted Training Grounds, a wartime legend from Canada. On the 17th of May, 1961, President John F. Kennedy stood before the Canadian Parliament and delivered a speech that still carries weight today. He spoke about a border that knew neither guns nor guerrillas, about geography making neighbors, history making friends, economics making partners, and necessity making allies. It wasn't just polite talk, it was the truth, a shared history built through hardship, sacrifice, and war. For well over a century, Canadian and American soldiers have fought side by side. From the mud and misery of the First World War to the chaos of Normandy, from the frozen hills of Korea to the endless deserts of the modern war on terror, Canada might have a reputation for being friendly, laid back, and polite, but don't let that fool you. When it comes to fighting, Canadian soldiers are as hard as they come. And yet, not every legacy of war is carved in stone or pinned to a uniform. Some are far more unsettling. Some refuse to stay quiet. Long before tanks tore up the ground and artillery shook the earth, southern Ontario was just farmland and forest. In the early 19th century, families settled the land that would eventually become Canadian Forces Base Meaford. They built stone houses with their own hands, dug wells deep into the soil, and buried their dead in small family graveyards nearby. Life was simple, tough, and unforgiving. Kids played in open fields while their parents worked the land, trusting that the world they knew was safe enough. But it often was. Wells were everywhere, and many were barely marked. Rotten boards, loose stones, or nothing at all stood between a curious child and a long fall into darkness. Accidents happened more often than people cared to admit. Children wandered off. Some were found, some weren't. And some, according to local stories, cried for help until their voices faded away. Everything changed in 1942. With the Second World War in full swing, Canada needed land, and it needed it fast. Meaford was perfect, wide open, rugged, and cheap. The government bought the land, and families were told to pack up and leave. Homes were abandoned almost overnight. Cemeteries were left behind. Wells were filled in, forgotten, or simply ignored. What had once been a quiet farming community was turned into a massive military training ground. As soldiers arrived and training began, odd stories started doing the rounds. At first, they were brushed off as scare tactics, the sort of nonsense old hands tell new recruits to wind them up. But the stories didn't go away. In fact, they became more consistent. One name kept coming up again and again: Meaford Mary. Some called her Blue Eyes. The story went that she was a young girl who lived on the land before the military ever arrived. Sometime in the late 1800s, she fell into a well, trapped, alone, crying for help that never came. According to those who believe it, she never left. They say she still wanders the training grounds at night, calling out to soldiers, luring them away from their positions. She appears small, dressed in white, with eyes that glow an unnatural shade of blue. One of the most chilling modern accounts comes from a Royal Canadian Air Force member who had previously served as an Army reservist. During the summer of 2014, he was posted to Meaford for infantry training. Like most young lads, he'd heard the stories and thought they were a load of rubbish, ghost stories, campfire nonsense. That all changed during a night exercise near one of the old graveyards. It was about 3 in the morning, dead quiet, no wind, no movement. Visibility was awful, maybe 5 feet at best. He and another soldier were on watch, scanning the tree line when they noticed 2 faint blue lights in the woods about 20 meters away. At first, they figured it had to be a headlamp or some bit of kit reflecting light. But the lights moved. They bobbed up and down, just like someone walking. Then they heard it. A little girl crying. Not shouting, not screaming, just crying. The sound was clear and close, and it sent a proper chill down their spines. Seconds later, the blue lights vanished completely. No footsteps, no rustling leaves, nothing. When they checked around, everyone else nearby was still asleep. No one was playing tricks. They laughed it off later, like soldiers always do, but neither of them forgot it. Deep down, they both knew that wasn't a headlamp, and it definitely wasn't a bloke messing about. Among those who have trained at Meaford, there's a bit of unspoken advice that gets passed around. If you hear a child calling for help in the middle of the night, you stay where you are. If you see blue eyes watching you from the woods, you don't follow them. Because plenty of soldiers who ignored that advice ended up lost, injured, or dangerously close to the old wells scattered across the base. And that's where the real unease comes in. Not just the idea of a ghost, but the thought that the land remembers, that the past hasn't let go, that whatever happened there all those years ago still echoes through the trees, waiting for someone to listen. Agar